Hey there, Diogo here, and I want to welcome you to the third part of Freedom Week. Over the last few days, I have been publishing a series of videos that show how you can completely transform your financial life and finally have the control you have been looking for your entire life. Since we are going to take a deeper approach in this video, before we go any further, I need you to understand a few things. Please take a moment to go over the next slide before continuing. I will see you in a minute. Welcome back! In the last few videos, I have shared with you what not to do to get ahead financially, as well as exactly what you need to do to transform your financial life in as little as 5 minutes a day. I've taught you exactly what you should do in order to set up the basic structure of a healthy financial life, and how you can apply it to your own life and get the results you've been looking for. So if you haven't already seen the first two videos, make sure to go back and watch them, as they will be essential for you to understand exactly what I'm going to teach you today. And today, I will be sharing with you in detail the 3 pillars that make up an extremely healthy financial life. I'm going to not only teach you about this, but also give you a couple of PDFs that will help you start on this new journey the right way. These pillars are the foundation of everything we are going to cover in our advanced classes, which will start in the next couple of weeks. And before we get started today, I do want to tell you that we will be opening registration tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. So if what you've learned so far this week and what you will still learn today is having an impact on your life and you are interested in going even deeper, then I am 100% positive Prime will help you master your financial life. I want to thank you one more time from the bottom of my heart for the phenomenal feedback you have been giving me throughout this week. It is awesome to have you here with me. I love sharing this information with you as I know for a fact it will completely change the way you view your financial life. And I guarantee you that this information, when applied correctly, will help you take your game to the next level. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the 3 pillars that make up an extremely healthy financial life. I'm going to put this in the simplest way possible. Although some of the things I will say may seem a little silly, all I ask you is to pay close attention, as it will make a lot of sense when we tie it all together in the end. In getting started, I want to ask you 2 simple questions, and I want you to answer with the very first thing that comes to your mind. Here's the first one. If I were to offer you $1 million cash right now, or a single penny that will double every day for the next 31 days, what would you choose? You see, life is all about choices. Some of the choices we make allow us to step forward and reach new levels never imagined before, while others take us so far back we can barely remember where we were to begin with. Now, I am sure you have been through your share of choices in life, but the question is, how have they turned out so far? We live our lives one day at a time, rarely thinking about the future. We are taught to simply live today to the fullest and enjoy every moment as if it were the last. But what happens when tomorrow comes? Fear takes over. Desperation sets in, and we are once again faced with choices, no better off than the day before. Some of us actually learn from our mistakes, while most, not so much. We live in a culture where everything feels like it has to happen right away, so we end up choosing what's best for then and there, forsaking the good of our future. And this is what happens. Most people believe that in order to grow financially, they must first have money. But life doesn't work this way. And even if it did, they would lose it all in a very short period of time. Statistically speaking, people who win the lottery are back to their same conditions, facing the same situations within 3 short years, oftentimes their latter state being worse off than their former. Have you ever stopped to think why? The answer is simple. They had always thought, when I get money, my problems will be solved, when in fact, money isn't the solution. Having a good financial structure is the solution. It helps you set yourself up to both get the money and manage it with wisdom. Maybe your blessings haven't arrived yet for the simple fact that you are not ready for them. It could be that gaining a lot of money right now might ruin your life. You need to make sure you not only have a very specific plan, but also have a sharp mind that's ready to receive everything that is in store for you. But at the end, it is all about choices. The second question is also fairly simple, but just as important. If I were to give you $1 million today, what would you do with it? You could literally do anything you wanted. You could go on a vacation, buy a home, pay off your debt, buy a new car, or even buy some gold. However, before you make a decision, I want to present you with two caveats. The first one is that you will need to make a quick and educated decision about what you are going to do with the money, as you only have 24 hours to make it. After 24 hours, whatever amount of money you didn't use would be taken back. The second caveat is that you have to make a decision that will produce an outcome of doubling this money in 10 years or less. The problem is, if you have ever learned about something called the Rule of 72, you would be lost and hindered in your decision-making. You would have no idea what to do with the money, or how much interest you would need to receive in order to make the money double in 10 years or less. We'll cover this rule a little later. So do you think you could abide by these caveats and get the $1 million? Before saying yes, know that if you can't follow the guidelines set before you in the hypothetical situation, you would have to suffer the penalty of being liable for all that you were given. Yes, the entire $1 million. It's a little like gambling, isn't it? But the truth is, it doesn't have to be. The question is, are you ready to make this decision? It's time to make a choice. And whatever it is, make sure it is a good one, because as you can see, there is a lot on the line. What I want you to understand with this simple yet extremely effective exercise is that you must have a clear and specific plan of action and a clear understanding of exactly what you need to do when the opportunity presents itself. Like every game, you must understand the rules before you actually start playing, unless of course you don't mind losing everything and going back to the very beginning every time you play. I truly believe that a good way to learn something new is through trial and error. A wise and smart way to learn, however, is through someone else's mistakes. Today, you will have the opportunity to learn through my mistakes. And with that in mind, one of the biggest challenges that most people have is that they usually set off on a journey without ever understanding exactly where they want to go. This happens because most people are so used to living life one day at a time, in every single area, that when it comes to their finances, they end up taking the same approach, hence never achieving significant results. They end up going from one place to another without ever actually achieving anything meaningful in life. So for that reason, we will start with the basic structure. To keep things as simple as possible, I want you to ask yourself the following question. If you could change any area of your life with a simple push of a button, what would it look like? If you had unlimited resources and more money than you could ever spend, which is probably one of the major things holding you back today, what would each area of your life really look like? I want you to ask yourself that because not knowing where you are is a big challenge. But bigger yet is not knowing where you're going, not to mention not knowing how to get there. You must take an active approach in understanding what your goals are in each area of your life and be extremely intentional about them on a daily basis. As you are probably well aware of by now, life has plenty of ups and downs, hills and valleys, highs and lows, and regardless of what you learn here today, there will always be new challenges to overcome. The key is to learn how to overcome them. Look at this perfect circle for a second. This is your life, and each one of these areas represents a pillar that basically works like gravity. Whether you believe it or not, it still exists and impacts tremendously your very being. In my opinion, the key to success in life is to find as many mentors as you possibly can in each of the areas you want to master, as they have been there before and will be able to help guide you every step of the way. With a mentor, you not only learn what to do, but also what not to do. You see, the reason most people end up going through life having way more ups and downs than they should is mainly because, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is an absolute disaster and 10 is a life of total excellence, they may be an 8 in some areas, but a 3 in others. The biggest issue with all of this is that when you finally connect all dots, you will realize that what was supposed to be a perfect circle is a complete mess. And if you were to put this circle as a wheel on your car, you would not get very far at all. So my question is, if you wouldn't put something like this on your car, why would you allow something like this to be the centerpiece of your life? Although you will be doing an exercise at the end of this video to see how each area of your life is being affected by not knowing where you are going, and what to do about it, this week we will be focusing on number 3, your wealth pillar. You will quickly realize how amazing it is to have total clarity, and by the end of this video, you are going to be able to apply the very same technique in all 10 pillars of your life. As I just mentioned, it is extremely crucial to know where you are so you can understand where you are going and know exactly what to do to get there as fast and as safe as you can. And my goal with this training is to help navigate through your wealth pillar the best way possible. After years of struggle trying to sort through all the noise out there, I have finally been able to apply something in my life that actually works, and better yet, to lay down a clear and specific plan to help you get there as well. Here's what it looks like. Your wealth pillar is broken down into 10 steps that will, when applied in the right order, generate amazing results. Simple as that. It is important to notice that nothing that I have been talking about this week is new, or even something you can't find on the internet or a public library. What I do want you to see today is that there is a science behind it. I wanted to show you this because, as you have probably already noticed, my biggest goal here is to challenge how you see most things in your life, and to give you a new perspective so you can understand where you are now and where you could be a few years down the road. And as promised in the last video, I am going to share with you about the pillars that make up an extremely healthy financial life. This is something that I have been able to develop throughout the years and also apply it to my own life. I can tell you for sure that I now have a plan that is easy to consume and simple to apply. And what's more important, it makes it easy to achieve great results that are sustainable for as long as needed. Now, I am curious. Have you ever had the chance to build a house from the ground up? Maybe you have never built one per se, but I am sure you have seen one being built, correct? I want you to picture this in your mind because from now on, everything we are going to talk about, like the 3 pillars that make up a healthy financial life, will resemble the 3 major phases that it takes to build an actual house. And the first phase is the foundation. If you have ever thought of building a house without first setting the foundation, don't do it. It's foundational, meaning it's what everything else is founded upon. So a question we should ask ourselves is, how much time should we take to build a solid foundation? The answer? As much time as we need. You see, if you are able to build a strong and solid foundation, you will then be able to sleep soundly through the storms. Why? Because you'll have the peace of mind knowing that your house isn't going anywhere. On the other hand, if you rush through this process, your house could potentially crumble, even before you complete it. When it comes to your financial life, the foundation to your house is how well you structure your finances. You can make a ton of money, but at the end of the day, unless you know how to manage and protect it properly, you will lose track of it and likely find yourself in a huge mess. In this part of the process, we are going to use things such as a great budget and a good money management system, as well as figuring out your financial independence number and having the adequate amount of insurance coverage so you know for a fact you are fully protected at all times, among other things. When it comes to your finances, you can spend your entire life building an empire, but if you don't learn how to properly protect it with the right type of insurance coverage and specific instructions that will dictate exactly what should happen to your kids and possessions, even if you are no longer here, the first storm that comes around will cause everything to come crumbling down in your family. I'm going to spend some time explaining what having a solid foundation really means when it comes to your financial life. And in order to do that, you must not only understand it, but also believe in the power of leverage. As I've shown in the last video, unless you fully understand how to utilize the power of leverage to your benefit, you will never be able to get very far when it comes to your financial life. You will need to use a variety of tools and people that have a very specific expertise in order to leverage money, knowledge, and most importantly, time. But first things first, unless you know where you are when it comes to your finances, you will have a very hard time setting up a plan and getting anywhere in life. Although most people usually tell me they are horrible when it comes to organization, I'm going to lay out a plan that will be easy to follow and simple to understand. But in order for that to happen, you must first learn how to assess, organize, and automate your financial life. The very first thing you will need to do is assess your current situation. How do you do that? You can start by filling out something as simple as a budget sheet. This will help you get a very clear picture of where you currently are with your income and expenses. Most people are afraid of doing a budget because they have had such a bad experience in the past, where it caused so much pain by not being able to do anything fun, that they have simply given up altogether. All you need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again is follow a simple, proven formula that I use to allocate my expenses, not by dollar amount, but by percentages. I know it might seem a bit too simple, but trust me, once you understand what these percentages look like, it will completely change the way you look at doing a budget for the rest of your life. There are also other tools you can use to assess the situation you are currently in, such as learning how to apply the DIME formula, which will help you understand exactly what you will need when it comes to your life insurance needs. It will take into account not only the income your family would need if you could no longer provide for them, but also your total debt, mortgage, and total education costs for your kids. It is also important to learn how to structure a complete financial needs analysis, which is a very specific game plan that you will need to put together as soon as possible if you ever plan on reaching your financial goals. But don't worry, I will talk about how you can have access and learn how to utilize all of these tools soon. As I mentioned before, setting up a budget does not have to be as painful as it seems. You just need to know what you're doing. I have split the budget setting process into 3 phases so you can have a clear understanding of where you need to be at each phase of your life. In this training, we will look at one of the 3 phases you should consider when allocating your money on a monthly basis. As you can see, the first phase would apply to anyone who is currently making up to $100,000 per year. Now, keep in mind that these are the ideal percentages for someone in that income range, so if you are like most of the families I work with on a daily basis, you will not be anywhere near this right now, and that is totally okay. All I want you to understand is what a healthy and balanced financial life should look like. Ideally, in this phase, you would be setting 10% aside for giving, which, trust me when I say, plays a major role in this whole financial abundance game. 20% should be set aside for savings and paying off any high-interest consumer debt you may have. This will take a lot of the pressure off your back so you can build actual wealth and retire the way you deserve. 60% will go towards your fixed and needed expenses. I say needed because these are things that you actually need to survive, so no luxuries in this category. 10% will go into your variable expenses, or what I like to call fun money. This is where you will be able to buy and do the things you want to do without ever feeling guilty for doing so, as long as your budget allows, of course. Once again, even though you may not be able to follow these exact percentages right now, at least you will have something to look forward to from now on. It always helps to remember that. The second thing we are going to cover is how to build strong walls so you and your family understand exactly how to leverage your resources the right way. Leverage will be your best friend when it comes to growing your money and maximizing your overall returns. As a matter of fact, if you haven't already done so, make sure to watch the very first video on this series, as I explain why it is crucial to understand how to use leverage by building and maintaining your credit scores the right way. As you may or may not know, there are 3 major credit bureaus in the U.S., Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Their job is to give and receive feedback from creditors who are interested in providing you with a loan, credit card, or anything of that nature. By combining the payment history and the amount of credit you have up until this point, and a number of other factors, such as the amount of debt you have, they in turn generate what is called a FICO score, which is basically a number that ranges from 300 all the way to 850, depending on your creditworthiness. Your goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to not only build but also maintain this score as high as you possibly can by making sure you are always on time with your payments on a monthly basis, among other things. If you understand this concept, you will be able to fully use leverage to your advantage and, in turn, completely optimize the way you invest. Here are some of the things you can do in order to increase your credit score or even build it from the ground up. 1. Open a secured credit card. 2. Open a secured line of credit. 3. Use up to 30% of the credit limit. 4. Pay off the balance each month. Companies want to lend you money, and that could be a great thing if you know how to use it. On the other hand, it could be a tremendous downfall if you allow marketing companies to do their job and get you into the debt trap. You may not know, but most marriages end today because of money problems, and unplanned debt is surely one of the main causes. So learn how to use it properly. The third thing we're going to cover is how to build a great roof over your house and maximize your savings so you and your family can stay dry on rainy, wet days and cool on dry, hot days. The biggest problem is not that people don't make enough money throughout their lifetime. It's that they have no idea where to put it as they make it. It's not just about growing your money, it's about understanding the rules first so you know exactly where to put it. This might all sound very new and even a bit overwhelming to you, but I want to be the first one to tell you that you have nothing to worry about. Just follow the steps laid out in this training and you will be good to go. The only question here is whether or not you are going to learn from someone else's mistakes or your own. And since I am assuming that you are a wise person who would rather learn from others' mistakes instead of your own, you will have no problem following this simple guideline. Trust me when I say you do not want to put the wagon before the horses. But unfortunately, this is exactly what most people do. I want you to get excited about your financial future. And if you follow the steps I am laying out here, I guarantee you will have a bright future ahead of you. Remember earlier in this video when I asked you what you would do if I gave you $1 million? I said you could have the money, but there were two caveats. You would need to make sure the entire amount was used up within 24 hours, and also make sure that whatever you did with it would allow the money to double in 10 years or less. With that in mind, I also said that accomplishing the second caveat would be impossible unless you understood how to apply the Rule of 72, which I will now show you. The Rule of 72 is a simple and effective process that allows you to understand how long it will take for your money to double, based on the interest rate you are receiving on your money on a yearly basis. The formula is quite simple. All you need to do is take the number 72 and divide it by the amount of interest rate you are receiving annually. Yes, it's that simple. In other words, and to use a practical example, if you were to take $2,000 to the bank and loan it to them in the form of a certificate of deposit, or CD for short, and they were to offer you a 3% return per year, you would then take the number 72 and divide it by 3, which means that your money would double every 24 years. So by the end of 48 years, you would have an amazing $8,000. Awesome, right? Not really. The issue is that most banks' CD will offer you about 1% per year, which means your money would double every 72 years, according to the rule. How excited would you be if you put in the same $2,000 and 72 years from now be given back a total of $4,000? Do you see a major problem here? Now ask yourself, why is it then that most people are still taking their money to the bank, hoping that one day they will finally be able to retire? Not only that, but if you are getting a 1% return on your money per year and inflation alone is 3% on average per year, what does that really tell you? That you are making a negative 2% return on it every year. In other words, your purchasing power is now 2% less than what it was at the same time last year. There is a good reason the good book says that people perish for lack of knowledge, don't you think? Now let's say that because you have watched this video and now understand the Rule of 72, you would do everything you could to get at least a 6% yearly return on your money. You would now take the number 72 and divide it by 6, and your money would now double every 12 years, giving you a total of $32,000 by the end of year 48. Now I know you are a little more excited, but I did tell you initially that the $1 million I gave you needed to double every 10 years or less, didn't it? So in this case, it would still not work, since at 6% the money would take 12 years to double. But because you have stayed until the very end of this training, you learned that it's entirely possible to get a 12% rate of return on your money. And when you take the number 72 and divide it by 12, you will quickly realize that your money will now double every 6 years, giving you an amazing $512,000 by the end of year 48. And on top of that, you have been able to solve the problem, correct? Not necessarily. And the reason I say this is because although you understand that your money will double every 6 years, you still need to know what to invest in to generate that type of return. And that is exactly what we are going to cover in a few minutes. But before we move on, I want you to make a quick note to remind you later on today to ask 3 of your closest friends if they have ever heard of the Rule of 72. And if not, pay it forward and teach them how it works. It will change their life. But the question I want to ask you is, how long have you been paying the ignorance tax? And more importantly, how much have you paid up until now? If you're like most people, the number is pretty high. You are probably wondering what on earth I'm talking about and wanting me to simplify things. I will give you a personal experience I went through not too many years ago. Now keep in mind that I should know better, right? If you remember, I mentioned that money and knowledge are great when you actually apply it the right way. And don't ever allow it to blind you, no matter how much money you are actually making on a monthly basis. With that in mind, I want to ask you the following question. What would you do if you were given $150,000, but this time, unlike the $1 million experiment I did earlier, you could literally do anything you wished with the money? Literally, no strings attached or caveats of any sort. Most people would probably buy or pay off their primary home, credit cards, buy some gold, a nice car, or even take the family on a nice trip. Me? I decided to buy 2 very nice and expensive cars for a total of $150,000 in 1 week. As a matter of fact, they were our dream cars. After all, we had been working extremely hard for years and should now be able to enjoy it, right? Right. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I actually do believe we should. I strongly believe that people should be able to live their lives in abundance and should also be able to not only drive nice cars, but live in nice homes, regularly eat at good restaurants, and be able to go on awesome trips all around the world. Now, please keep in mind that I am not saying any of this to impress you, but to impress upon you the fact that it was a big mistake that I would love for you to avoid in the near future. The problem was not buying the cars, but how we bought them. Think back to when I talked about bad debt. Because I grew up like most people, I was taught that debt is bad and should be avoided at all costs. So when the opportunity presented itself, the first thing I thought was, let's buy the cars, but let's pay cash for them. That way we can add 2 pieces of asset to our total net worth, right? Wrong. What I didn't realize at the time, thinking purely with my emotions, is that I had just acquired 2 pieces of depreciating liabilities. And as nice as they were, 2 years down the road, they would very likely be worth 50% of what I had paid for them. What a deal! I do have to tell you that we still own the cars to this day, and although we have enjoyed them very much, they have depreciated a lot over time. They serve us as a great reminder of how not to do certain things. What a lesson! With that said, if I were to buy these very same cars and spend the same $150,000, but had chosen to finance them instead of paying cash, how much do you think they would cost on a monthly basis? Well, I did the math, and it would be about $2,500 a month. You may say, sure, but you also would have a very large car payment every month, right? You see, the issue isn't the payment, but the fact that I would have to work in order to produce the necessary income to make the payment. As I explained before, having bad debt isn't all that bad, as long as you don't have to work in order to pay for it, but instead have an income-producing asset, making that payment 100% passively for you. Make sense? If done properly, the right thing to do when you first start your financial life should be to live as cheaply as you possibly can in the earlier years, especially before getting married, and save every penny up until the moment a good income-producing rental property can be purchased for a good price. I said a good income-producing rental property, not a primary home. Say I had taken the same $150,000 I spent buying both of my cars and had leveraged it. Say I had worked really hard on my credit and now had a fantastic credit score. Lenders would now send me offers every day, but because I am a smart buyer and I don't allow marketing companies to lure me into trouble, I only use credit when I need it. My goal would be to find a distressed property that ideally has a market value of about $120,000 that I could easily purchase for $100,000. That would automatically generate me a $20,000 initial equity gain and would make me a very happy camper. I would have already been pre-approved by my bank and would have used an $80,000 loan to purchase the house. I would put $20,000 down and use an extra $10,000 towards closing costs and any needed renovations. That house would then rent for about $1,200 a month, which after paying my mortgage, insurance, and taxes, which would be $500, would allow me to keep a $700 net profit every month. How is this sounding to you so far? Well, I still have $120,000 left from the initial $150,000. So what do? Simple. I repeat the same process 4 more times. I would have a total of $600,000 worth of properties that I would have purchased for $500,000, generating an initial equity position of $100,000 right out of the gate. I would have a $400,000 loan, would have put $100,000 as a down payment, and an additional $50,000 towards closing costs and initial repairs between all 5 properties. My total gross rent would be $6,000 per month, and my mortgage payment on a monthly basis would be $2,500, leaving me with $3,500 net profit every month. Do you see where I'm going with this? If not, I'm going to paint 2 scenarios for you. Tell me which one makes more sense. Tell me also if you understand now why I call this ignorance tax, and try to remember how many times you have done something similar in your life. Scenario 1. I am driving a Porsche Panamera, feeling extremely excited with the new car. My wife is feeling the same way, riding around in a beautiful Range Rover. The only problem is, we are out $150,000. Scenario 2. I have purchased $600,000 worth of properties for $500,000, making an immediate $100,000 of unrealized profit, and have $3,500 net profit coming in every month, where $2,500 is being used to pay for both of my cars, leaving me with an extra $1,000 per month to do as I please every month. But wait, there's more. This would generate a true great tax benefit that could now be used against any earned income I might have. I would have tenants spending the next 30 years paying down my mortgage and still be able to capitalize on the appreciation of the properties. So, which one makes more sense? Let me help you. Have you figured it out? No? Let me help you again. Okay. But just one last time. You know what the crazy thing is? At the end of the day, people still ask me why I think real estate is such a great investment. And the answer is pretty easy. This structure alone would create 5 benefits when it comes to income. 1. Initial equity. 2. Equity buildup. 3. Appreciation. 4. Cash flow. And 5. Tax break. As you can see, the order in which you do things make a tremendous difference in your financial life, and could be the difference between having a good and a great financial life. You see, the one who truly wins the game is not the one who has the biggest pile of chips on the table, but the one who best understands the rules and knows exactly how to play the right cards at the right time. Your financial life does not have to be a 7-headed beast, but like everything else worth doing in life, you must take some time to understand the patterns, know the rules, and learn how to master the game. You must master the 3 pillars of a healthy financial life, period. You will have to deal with this one way or another. Learn how to master them, and you will have a beautiful financial future ahead of you. And before we end this video, as promised, I want to leave you with a little exercise to get you on the right path and prepare you for our next video. As I spoke to you earlier, the best way to get to where you want is to know where you are and what you will need to do to get there. But in order to do that, you must have very clear and specific written goals. It is amazing how our mind works, and since it cannot tell the difference between fantasy and reality, whatever you feed it, it will believe it. Awesome, isn't it? So with that in mind, here is what I want you to do. Since this is Freedom Week, and as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, we will focus on your wealth pillar. I want you to take a good look at the wheel of life and ask yourself a simple question. On a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is an absolute disaster and 10 is a life of excellence, where do I see myself when it comes to my finances? Circle the first number that comes to mind, but make sure you don't overthink it and just go with your gut feeling. Next, I want you to ask yourself, what would need to happen in my financial life in order for me to go to the next level? In other words, if you pick number 5 as your present situation, what would need to happen in order for you to go to a 6? Be very specific and direct. Next, I want you to get the number you have just selected as your current situation and write it next to present. The future goal is a given, since we all want to live a life of total purpose and abundance, so that is pre-populated for you here. You will then find a word that describes how you are feeling now in regards to your financial life, and find a picture on the internet to represent it. Copy and paste the picture into the square and type up the word in the line under the box. Think of another word that represents where you want to ultimately be. Find, copy, and paste a picture that represents it, and write the word in the line under the box as well. Here's an example. You see, the goal here is to go from Egypt, the land of slavery, to Canaan, the promised land, in every area of your life, one step at a time. But in order to do that, you must understand exactly where you are going. I know for a fact you can do it. And if you believe with all your strength and all your heart that you can as well, you will do great things with your life. I promise you that. And even though you have probably never heard this before, I want to say, I believe in you. The question is, do you believe in yourself? And in the video that will be available tomorrow, I am going to open the enrollment and explain to you all of the details about the advanced program. You are going to understand exactly when the program starts, how you can register, what the awesome guarantees are, and also, since there are a lot of people asking about it, what the investment will be. In summary, you will have everything you need to know to make an extremely informed decision. So stay tuned, because tomorrow you will be notified via email as well as all social media channels that the enrollment is officially open. Once we open enrollment, there is no telling how many hours we will be open for, since this particular class has very limited seating. If you are looking to participate and grow with us, keep an eye out and sign up as soon as you receive the notification to guarantee your spot. But before you close this video, leave me a comment below telling me some of your thoughts. Let me know if you learned something or if anything that I shared with you today came as a shock somehow. I would love to hear from you and get your feedback, so like and share this video with your friends. That way, we can start building a strong community of people who are interested in taking their financial life to a completely new level. Thanks for your input, and I look forward to hearing from you on the next video.